Hello, we're back. Last week we talked about, maybe it was yesterday, but we went over Claude Code, how to use Claude Code, right? So let's just clear this right now. Um, and we started a project called I Don't Know What I'm Doing, IDK What I'm Doing. How did we do that? Let's back it up. We did something like mkdir, I don't know what I'm doing. That should fail because we already have something called I don't know what I'm doing. And it does fail. It calls it a file. I think that's a lie. I mean, I guess. So now we have some questions. This isn't when we get scared and turn our laptops off. This is when we learn. So CD means change directory, and we are changing our directory to I don't know what I'm doing. So back in I don't know what I'm doing, might as well break down what we're using right now from my understanding and then get the AI's understanding. So if I type something like Claude, I would execute a command. Claude itself has to exist somewhere in my path to be executable. Executable means runnable, big fancy college university words. So Claude, I would use Claude and it would kick it off. And now it's like, oh, look, let's have a conversation. However, what happened to all the stuff we were working on before? Resume. In fact, we're in Claude. So this is a Claude terminal app. That's what we were in the terminal. We typed Claude, and now the terminal has become this interactive application that's like, welcome back, friend. I don't know what I'm doing, yada, yada, yada. But so I do forward slash, and then we can look at some of the commands that you could use. So what I wanted to demonstrate, though, was this is not the same. I just hit Command N. That's command. If you're in a terminal and you hit Command N, you'll spawn a new terminal. I highly recommend, and at some point I'm going to go through like a bunch of the macros. Macros being like a Command N or Command. You use the Command C macro all the time. That just means copy, right? So I did Command N to make a new terminal. Over here, like I get into this argument a lot, and I'm just going to defer to AI to do the thinking for me. But I want to keep this one cordoned right now. Cordoned, separated, on its own. I don't want to mess with this context because we're going to do something special here. But all right, so it says quick safety check. Is this? Well, yeah, I do trust my root directory. So what is backslash? I'm pretty sure this one's backslash and this one's forward slash. Backslash. I'm correct. People try and correct me sometimes, but I try to assert what I know to be true, even if it's trivial and like technical matters. So that's just, I know this isn't why you're watching the video. You can skip ahead. But here we are. We're back at Claude. We're in our terminal. Over here, we spun up a session and now it's gone. But it was saved. So our previous session from last week, 2 days ago, how do we get back? So right now we're here, right? So I do Claude resume. That's one way to execute this command. But But if I do this, how come it doesn't drop down here? That's because this is an integrated terminal app. So if I do this, it's like permission denied. You can do CD that, and then I'm in you can see all these. I'm at the root of my file system now. But then if you hit CD, you actually come back to your home directory, which for me is users Brett Owers. So I can do CDC and then do CD users, Brett Owers. And I set it to potatocore.mp4, just that's my thing. Multimedia 4. I don't know. I'm trying to do a thing right with that. All right, so now we can hit what I wanted to show you about Claude. If I do Claude, we're back there. We hit resume. Why don't I just, that's funny. I didn't even really mean to show that. It looks like the only 2 sessions that I've ever had in my root directory are, why don't I just make an application for it? I don't like, it was a password management system. I'm like, I don't want to like pay for one of these tools. Why don't we just make our own? That's generally my attitude now that AI is around, because if someone wanted to attack me, I'm gone, I bet. Probably. I don't know. Like if you have mustered up enough energy to attack an individual, I think you have a much better chance. But with a lot of scammers or hackers, they're in it for the money, or like for a nefarious purpose. They're like this has to do with scope. Why would you focus on someone who you can barely get a small amount of crypto from if you hack them, or maybe you get access? For me, it'd be like you get access to potatoes. Who cares right now? But at the same time, you still want to secure things. You want to keep your bases covered, but there's just this like uncertain element where like there's millions of researchers out there who could do nefarious things. And I mean, if you're conspiracy minded like myself, maybe something like Pegasus. If you ever watched Yu-Gi-Oh, just kidding. If you ever watched, I think it was Snowden. I think there was a movie on Snowden, and they're like, if you have someone's email, you can have access to their webcam. I think that's disturbing, but at the same time, I'm not just gonna like put my tail behind my legs and run away. Like in some instances, I'm like, let's at least go through what it would be like if I was to do this the right way. That's a mouthful to say. Like I wanted a password manager. I wanted to make my own application. And this is going to be indicative of this channel. Very frequently, you'll just like, maybe for like a month or 2 months, I'm working on something and it seems cool and maybe it's useful and we have some users. But at some point I start using something and I'm like, I hate this thing. I want to make my own. So 3 weeks ago, that happened with the password manager. And now we're trying to understand the backslash character. Great. So let's close it. Now over here, we hit resume. We've only got one. Why do we only have one, but in the other one we had two? It has to do with, let me see if there's one here. I don't think there's one there, but there should be one there. Claude. LS. I don't know why I tried to cat that. That would. Technically, that cat means, I think, concatenate. But the idea is to like print it out. It sends it to standard output, which prints it to the this thing, standard output. I'm using a lot of expressions and words that we're just going to ask ChatGPT what they mean. And that's really what I'm trying to show you is possible if you're not using this tool. That like most things you can learn on the fly from an engineering perspective. Now, I'm not saying that it's always going to be right. I'm not going to say that it's always going to be the best way forward. But what I am going to say is you're going to be able to get your hands dirty. You're going to be able to see how your computer actually responds to things that the system tells you. Now, don't just execute every command that you ask it to, because like I could ask it for a single command that could brick my whole machine. Brick meaning break. It could break my whole machine, 75 damage. Like, I don't want to do that. But what I want to demonstrate to you is a few different things. So there's this .claude directory that gets installed when you download Claude Code. And I say gets installed. It creates this directory, and all of these things inside of it get created as well. Maybe some things you have to execute a command for it to happen. But okay, here we have that Claude.md. That's the secret sauce. Like, that's my root ClaudeMD. I'm actually somewhat protective of that ClaudeMD. I don't want to just share that. Maybe if you gave me enough money, I would share it with you. But the thing is, you can make ClaudeMDs anywhere. So let's go to, I don't know what I'm doing. LS, do we see a Claude? Cat Claude.md doesn't exist yet. The thing is, now that I'm in here, if I had a ClaudeMD, like I could do that. Watch. Touch is a command that you can use to create on the in shell, in terminal, Mac OS, creates a file. Now if we do ls to list all the files here and folders, we would see ClaudeMD. So now I can do so now I hit V. V is an editor. This is like most of this stuff you don't need to know, but like usually what I would do, let's just go like this for now. Usually I would do code ClaudeMD. I have this tool. I mean, if you're a developer, you have this. If you're not a developer, this is something I highly recommend you download. This is called Visual Studio Code. Much more user-friendly, very easy to mess with things. So in the ClaudeMD, this is our way that we would improve every single session that we have in that particular directory. This is how we would modify it. What do I mean modify it? It's how we would enrich that context immediately. So for this, I want to say like, let's say, this is one that I've been using lately that I really like. Before you ever write any code, ask me CYMMU. Well, like the key word here is Umatsu. Yumatsu means your understanding, my understanding, the same understanding. You don't, I made this rule up, you don't want your system to start writing until the system itself tells you what it thinks you want. And at that point, you do have to read. You do have to QA its response. At that point, this is not canon. This is an unconventional, what I found to be super useful way. And you could do this a variety of ways. And it's actually easier to do this interactively. If I was to ask, so I just hit Control Shift tilde, or like the backtick. This is what a backtick is. This is a tilde. Just one's a tilde. I guess these are tildes. You do that, it'll open up a terminal in Claude Code. You also have to do, I just hit Command Shift O. This is specific to Visual Studio Code. For some reason, usually the first time doesn't work. This caret is supposed to, this is called the command palette. This opens up the command palette. I have to hit exit. Okay, so I guess that's still not working. Maybe I have to, it's Command Shift P. It is Command Shift P. Then if you type code, shell command, install code command in path. That's the reason that I'm able to do code. I could either go period and it'll open up this current directory in Claude or in Visual Studio Code, or code Claude like I did already, which opened up the file, as you can see there. That said, so we have all these things. What else we wanted to cover? So we opened up claude.md. I wanted to demonstrate to you an interactive way to do this. So this is gonna be another session before we get into what we were working on before, after which we're just gonna log everything. I think at this point in AI time, like the best thing you can do is have it build you a project that teaches you things. And then like, don't be stingy about keeping it all in that one project. Make another project when you're ready. So I'm making one called, I don't know what I'm doing. We're gonna figure out what we're doing. And like my main directory, I would say, is ls potatoes. So we've got all this stuff in there, right? And it would be difficult. I'm not going to try and explain all that right now, maybe at some point, but that's like where my real work takes place for the business that I'm building, including Potato Core. So I have this notion right here, and I don't know what I'm doing. So we want to make sure that we go to I don't know what I'm doing and say, hey, Claude, hey, we want to, you don't have to say, hey, we want to. I do it. I don't know if it's important. I might be wasting tokens. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. I'm showing you a way to engineer this thing. The thing with engineering that I think is different, like when you consider STEM, you have science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. I think of those, like I think I have a scientific mind in practice, not in I don't like people who say trust the science. I don't think that's reasonable or logical. I think that's like a religious way to approach science. Science is an activity. Science, you hypothesize, you gather information, you come to conclusions, you do research in that order. No, I just made that up. I mixed those up because I don't want you to take what I'm saying as canon. I want you to take it as for what it is, something that maybe you can learn from. And the thing I'm trying to teach you right here is Claude will show you these things. ChatGPT could show you these things. Hermes could show you these things. Not the God. There's like a agentic framework that can do this. So, hey, we want to build our claude.md for this file. What do we want to do? We want to build a claude.md for this file. The key thing is we are making a video demonstrating some fundamentals required / beneficial for working with Claude. One heuristic, it's a simple rule or trick, that I have found to be useful is this notion of yumatsu, where before you build, you ask, confirm your understanding matches my understanding. Confirm your understanding matches my understanding. And I would respond with yes, no, or yumatsu. Yes would generally include some. This is more like for how I approach it, because if you just say yes, it's effectively the same as Yumatsu. But usually, I'm telling it now. Yes would generally include some extra context to use as your North Star. No means like, because there's something going on behind the scenes in Claude Code that we're not always sure of. So when I say no, I'm trying to say no means like eliminate that, eliminate your current conception, because like sometimes when you're explaining it or talking through it and then it feeds it back to you, you're actually totally on the other side of it. So by the other side of it, like you're not on board with what it's saying. So no means eliminate your current conception, your understanding, my understanding, the same understanding. Yes would generally include some context. No means eliminate your current conception. Yumatsu means your understanding, my understanding, the same. Well, technically, I guess this would be a semicolon, the same understanding. So I like this. No means eliminate your current conception. Okay. That is the green light to build. At a high level, this project, I don't know what I'm doing, shall seek to fill gaps in my own knowledge, as I am I think 3-time college, it could be 2-time college, I can't even count, college dropout turned full stack developer after a coding boot camp. I am trying to help people, particularly Potatofolk, get up to speed with of these things. One of the things that is going to happen here, like that I realized while I was typing, is there's a voice mode, and soon we're not going to be typing anymore. We're just going to use Claude Code's voice mode, and it might not be perfect, and sometimes I like having the fine-grained control to type, but we're going to move forward with that soon. So particularly Potatofolk, get up to speed with these things. As well, yeah, I already said fill up the gaps in my knowledge, like, because I had a friend talk to me today about the kernel, and when I think of the kernel for an operating system, the only thing that I can think of is it's like this is the way that we get it's the interface between like instructions and the machine's like execution of those instructions. I'm not even going to read this. My understanding of this repo, I don't know, is a teaching artifact. The video is a deliverable. Yep, operationally governed. Now I have in this repo. So the program, I like that. Pedagogically encode the project's mission, filling knowledge gaps for potato. Yep, I love that. So future sessions. This human loop is one of the fundamentals of this video demonstrate. Yep, green light. So, yeah, like in the meantime, it's like that thing's working, so we don't want, one thing that I'm about to do, this can open another shell, and then this you can just, well, maybe there's a better way to do this, but you drag it here, now I've got 2. This was already Claude, it wasn't like I can close this out, now I have a terminal, I could do this stuff again. Ooh, what do I have here? Uh-oh. Doesn't matter, not a big deal. I don't know, sometimes I just get sketched sharing, you know what I mean? All this stuff that's going on in my machine. See, so look what it made. It did all of this. And I'm a little lazy. I'm pretty confident that this is enough. It doesn't need to be perfect for me to move forward in the direction that I want to go. Because usually what you want to do is you want to like get so focused on something, build. And then at some point you're going to be like, oh, I've been going about this all wrong. But then you're going to have the actual conception of what you want. And in the software development world, I think that's the most difficult thing. Like, CEO could say, I want profitable app. All right, that's why you're CEO. Because, yeah, it's that clear. But then when it gets down to the person generating or creating that app, I say generating, but like coding that app, or not even just coding the app, but there might be a ton of departments. Like I work at a credit union. A ton of departments all trying to work together for a common goal. But that common goal is separated in logical ways, such as marketing wanting to promise and make good on those promises and make everything beautiful and like engage people. Then you have like compliance or risk, who's like, well, we also want to make sure that people aren't like getting robbed blind. Like we want to make sure that we're not breaking any laws. Then there's development, who's like coding a lot of these things. That said, coding has to take their orders from a product owner in a conventional setup where the product owner is supposed to have a really good conception of what the product is, and or at least what the product is supposed to be, and then guide the developers in order to like make good on that product so that marketing and risk and compliance and all the other branches are happy. The finance department, there's so much that goes into businesses, and I'm interested in all those things. So what we want to do now is see, I don't know what I'm doing. LS, we'll clear this one out again. But now we're back to Claude, and we could hit resume if we want. And we're already in this this one, but we want to do explore and figure out next steps. This now has access to this. So now when this has some conception, it's going to be beautiful. What do I mean it's going to be beautiful? We're going to be able to explain things better. What do I mean? I like to, when I say, sometimes I just say things that come to mind. I like to then try and break those things down using whatever I said as like a seed and try and circle back, because my brain works kind of tangentially. This is just me introducing myself. Hello, I'm Brett. If you meant network ports, yeah. So what is a kernel? Okay, I think that next thing is I am going to be asking you a ton of questions periodically, randomly. And instead of just, and in those instances, the actual website here should take note of what today is, i.e. 2026, 6/4, that's June 4th. And it should effectively create an archive / file system so that we are building out a massive vocab conceptual understanding list that get tied to whatever day the question was asked. I think that this directory then becomes the engine of note-taking, because I'm going to ask you questions like, what is a kernel? And let's read what a kernel is real quick. The kernel is the part of an operating system that actually talks to the hardware. Everything else goes through it. Think of it as the head. I love it. It's already doing the potato stuff. Think of it as the head warehouse manager. You don't walk into the warehouse and grab potatoes off the shelf yourself. You hand a request to the manager. I need 50 pounds of russets from bin 3. The manager checks if you're allowed, fetches it, hands it back. Every other staff member does the same. So yeah, in that instance, it would be like there's instructions that have to get processed. The actual thing that's processing them is like machine code stuff that's like behind the scenes. But there's still that interface, that manager who's making sure that directions get sent to the people that it needs to get sent to. So the kernel handles CPU time, deciding which program gets to run for the next few milliseconds. Memory, handing out RAM to programs and reclaiming it when they're done. Disk files, reading and writing the actual storage devices. Yeah, all that makes it. When you hear Linux, that's actually just the name of a kernel. Ubuntu are all full operating systems built around it. macOS has a kernel called Xenu. Windows has the NT kernel. All right, so I want to capture all of this because, like I said earlier, or there's a callback real quick, I'll say a thing and then I'll want to like loop back on it. And we're about to get spiritual. I'm like obsessed with Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Go on, and then it says whose seed is in itself on the earth. That whose seed is in itself on the earth. There's this in some of the study that I do. It like links to this notion of things coming back around and the fundamental shape of everything being torus, or toroidal. I don't know how else to describe, like, it's effectively my justification for why I think it's appropriate to rant. My mom always used to say, oh, you're talking in circles. And it's like, I think that I'm talking in circles, but in a way, if I do it twice, I look at it like I'm talking in a lemniscate. That's the infinity sign. But really, I'm really trying to get a point home to people, because I think so, and I do the same thing. Someone will say something and you'll just kind of nod, and it's dismissive to just nod and like ignore if someone's really trying to get you to understand something. But the thing is, you can lead a horse to water. I can't get you to understand these things, but what I can do is talk around it until you're like, oh, I got what I needed from this video. Let me go do it. I don't want you to watch this whole video if you realize already that like you could just ask all the things that you have questions for to Claude Code, but like I'm also I'm like 49, 51%. Like I'm 51% to on board with AI, 49% like this might be the worst thing because there's this dependency. When you're dependent on something like this, let's say it goes away, or like you start to prune your other critical thinking skills, like living in the real world, um, you're going to sound like a robot, and you're not going to have. It's fetching multiple sources, but you have effectively characterized that knowledge as coming from those multiple sources and not coming from a streamlined person who's talking in circles about a thing. This AI will not talk in circles. It'll bring you forward. But if you're not like centered in your understanding of things, I feel like you're never going to be able to like materialize it. It'll only ever just be like you're just going to go forward aimlessly into the wilderness. We don't want that. So what we're going to do now is turn Claude Code into this engine that like archives all of the things that we learn or that we go over, and that'll effectively give us a worksheet. And I'm even going to have it do that. I didn't even think to do that before. Before it was just going to be like, oh, a list of words that I archived as we go through it. Nope, it's going to be a list of words with a worksheet to confirm your knowledge after the fact, because why not? We could do that. So I think this directory becomes the engine of note-taking. Every question gets a record on a given page for a given day. Then upon return, we start questions begin populating the next page. Access the current view via drop down. That's like shorthand for saying I want a little drop down for every day of the week. That's quickly going to become ornery, but it's very easy to change later on. So I think that'll be appropriate. And there should be an eval function or something that makes a worksheet, multiple choice worksheet, to confirm our knowledge on the questions we asked on a given day, effectively a circle back to confirm our knowledge. Please adjust. It might have already done this, but I just want to make sure it does it. Claude MD in this directory accordingly. All right, so this is all going to change. I'm just going to copy this for now. I guess we're not even, because I did code claude.md, I'm only looking at this file right now, which prevents me from, I mean, maybe there's a nifty way to do this. I don't, as much as I love Visual Studio Code, I'm not a big fan of this. I would just rather go code, I don't know what I'm doing. What's a bummer there is now these are over there. Let's find out if I can drag those over. I might be able to drag that. I can. That's awesome. Visual Studio Code is the best product that Windows ever released. So now I can close this. Those processes should still be running. And now it's over here. So, okay, but this needs to be over here. And then we can exit this one. Excellent. Exit is just going to exit a kernel. Usually we'll exit a process. Sometimes you can guess. So what is this doing? I don't want this over there. Was undecided. Okay, this not being there, that's annoying, but I think that'll change if I... No, I think the next message, it'll be good. I'm going to assume it knows what I want to do. So I'm showing you both how to get things working and some bad practices, but Yumatsu. So this is the kernel. Once it does that, I'll be more comfortable asking questions, because all of these things from like, okay, if I'm like, the kernel is the part of, the kernel is the thing that determines like the event loops of like handling the CPU, like, oh, what's going to handle what at what time, dishing out RAM. It's going to be like responsible for looking at the actual binaries, executing machine code that's moving files around, copying things. That's all accurate. But if you ask me how, there's like this one 5-minute TikTok video I watched once that like really went deep onto all these things. I don't feel comfortable saying that yet, but what we can do is build this app that teaches us those things. And at work, one of my coworkers is working on a tool that is for like knowledge bases. So you upload your knowledge base and you can ask it a question and it'll give you any information about this huge document that you give it, or like thousands of documents if you want, millions of documents if you wanted. We have this idea like, well, okay, what if there's contradictory data in there? Instead of just being confused and potentially giving wrong information, there's another UI component that's going to be scanning through that and saying how confident it is. No, that's one way you can go about it, but the actual way is it pulls both of those documents up and identifies, hey, there's a contradiction here for the answer. That is better. That is better than like what it would otherwise like. It speaks to the limitations of what we're working with. The reality is this is like a super powerful tool. So now we're about 30 minutes in. Let's get into some UI, right? So 8 things under the website explained by the stand. Is there a drop down? Okay, well, first let's just fix the thing that we had a problem with. I remember in last video I mentioned that it's this right here. There's this grid template columns. I just took that out, and then all of a sudden it looks halfway better. This part's still kind of messed up. But the thing is, I'll just show you this feature now. It's not really efficient to do it this way, but I end up doing it all the time. Right now, I'm on a Mac. If you didn't know you could do this, Command-Shift-4, you can do this to take a screenshot, and then you find the screenshot, you drag the screenshot. Next move is pixie. See this? The grid template columns is just for chapter right is breaking the web app. Please adjust this. Next move is probably assuming on the storage format, and so we can stack. I want to settle those now. We want to push toward. Yes, allow reading it. That was just, you have to give permission for Claude to be able to look at these things. I'm going to try and keep this video under 45 minutes. We want to push toward, what do we want to push toward? We want to push toward immediately turning this website into an archive of our conversations, presented in a visually appealing way. Like what we could, I mean, this might be overkill, but it would demonstrate some cool things. I think one valid approach would be, yeah, you know what? We'll start with SQLite. I was going to say like spawn up a, this is like not an intelligent way to say this, but this is effectively, you can spawn, I can say create a Docker Compose file. Docker Compose, Docker is this container service. You have to have this container daemon meaning the thing that runs under the hood of one of these laptops. It runs under the hood just performing operations. You don't really have to understand as much. That's a pretty ignorant way to say that. So we're going to say for the past, for the current home page is for yesterday. Today, the first entry should be what is a kernel. The second should be what is Docker. The third should be what is a daemon. The fourth should be, all right, what is a daemon? The fourth should be, what is a distribution? I was talking to a friend about it, and I didn't know how to like effectively explain what a kernel was without mentioning that there's different distributions. Plus, like the whole, like from my understanding, I think I mix up like, so Linux. I think the root is Unix. That's like the kernel. I don't have any of that right. Then there's like an NX kernel, and then like Windows has their own kernel. In my brain, it's like Windows kernel, Mac kernel, Linux kernel. It's not that, but for coding, a lot of times you don't need to know that stuff. That doesn't mean that we don't want to. That's why we're building this. The third should be, what is a daemon? The fourth should be, what is a distribution? Go. We want to push towards immediately turning this website into an archive of our conversations presented in a visually appealing way. One way would be, one valid approach would be SQLite for now, but I also had the thought, then SQLite. But I also had the thought of asking you to create a Docker compose.yaml that we could have a mounted like, you know, the stuff I'm saying right now, it's actually gold. It's not like there's no expectation while you're going through any of this that you know any of this. Really, there's no expectation. Like, what is a mounted volume? It took me a minute to figure out what that is. Volume meaning containing or holding things. Mounted meaning there's a thing where a thing could not be mounted and then you could mount it. Why would we have a thing that you could mount and then unmount things? It's because that thing that we're mounting and unmounting onto, we stand it up and we throw it away a lot. But we want to keep the mounted volume. It's like data, but so let's say you have an application and then you have data for that application. That application, you might want to stand it up, like have it out there, mount the data. The application puts info into the database because it's hard to interact with it. It's not hard, but users don't like interacting with a database every time that they put a comment in. They just want to put a comment in your application and then that goes into the database. So with Docker Compose, I would stand up an application, it could also stand up a database, it could stand up some APIs, it could stand up load balancers, but fundamentally, Docker Compose would make it really easy, stand up this database, and use a particular port and we discussed ports last video, expose a particular port to allow SQL commands to come in, SQL being a structured query language, database info, inserts into a database, push those into our application is going to push stuff into there. Oh, but wait, our application is not doing what we want it to. We discovered last video what NX is. NX is our live server and some configuration options for what we're working on. So we have NX, or was it NX? No, it's Vite. Why did I say NX? NX is, I think, also something that can do what I just said, but we're using Vite. So we want a mounted volume. When you deploy an application, you might have it interacting with a bunch of other applications. Docker Compose makes it really easy for it to associate those things together. Now, what I'm really trying to hammer home is there's a million ways to skin a cat, but how are you supposed to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We're learning things step by step, so we're going to say that we could have a mounted volume, but this might be overkill for now. Perhaps we do make an API later to aggregate our findings, which would mean it's better to use a database approach than strictly .text files for what we learned. I'm going to say, oh, I think it's using SQL. It's funny. SQLite sits at the repo root, the actual file database. It's funny because I'm telling this one to do it, but me just explaining what I wanted in this one, it was already getting ready to send the side list, so I have a CME before. One file, then SQLite, got it. It took SQLite as the thing that I wanted as a storage layer, but I actually wanted it to be like the fifth thing to teach. So because I'm a little tangential, we're going off in all these different directions. That's why it went out. That's why it went this way. But we're going to say Umatsu. We're going to say okay. So archive .db. This is how to denote that a file is actually a database that is a SQLite database. .db standing for database. Not all databases work like that. I don't think, at least. Yeah, of course not all of them, but I think most of them don't work like this. And this is a unique thing about SQLite. What's so exciting here is we're going to be able to explore the nature of SQLite is an open source system. Is this good? Yeah. All right. So let's just look at SQLite. Is the C language that implements a small is the most used database engine in the world. Is built into all mobile phones and most computers and comes bundled. Wow, how amazing! SQLite source code is in the public domain and is free to everyone to use for any purpose. You can build billion-dollar companies with this as your backend. You really could. And with Claude Code, I could tell Claude Code, hey, download SQLite. Build our app with this as part of the binary. I could have, with this button, if I then go into the terminal and I do git clone this, I would have this code in my file system. It's great. Like, you could use it to learn things. How about that? All right, but I'm just really stalling right now. I'm going to say Yumatsu, but there's another agent working. So I am not sure if you want to step on that agent's toes. That's one thing. I think they use Git work trees, but because they're kind of converging on the same thing, if this doesn't have like a productive thing that it recommends we do instead, I'm just gonna kill this terminal. And like, this is like, all right, so you can code, write your own applications. You can use a chatbot to help you write code for your applications. You can use an agentic orchestration system to basically monitor a bunch of different chatbots that are writing code for you, writing those codes to those codes to files, and then like wiring them all together, running them. The agents can do that. I think some chatbots can do that too. Like, they can execute tools. So that's all well and good. But if you just get thrown into that too quickly, it's really confusing. Like, all this is confusing. It's probably best, if you're trying to get into this, to start with a chatbot and like, ask it what a chatbot is. Like, ask it to make, like, we can add our own chatbot to this. The way that I'm going to kind of guide this is I'm probably going to talk to people in my real life about like what these videos were about. I don't know if anyone's going to watch these, but it's going to help inform me on how I can better like explain these things to people. So let's see if it's changing yet, because we do have Vite. It should be hot reloading. Ooh, one other thing. I really don't like, this is something that I found with Claude a lot, and I should really like wrap my head around it. So one thing to remember, inspect. I think you can also just hit F12. Yeah, if I hit F12, this, I have two monitors, that's why you can't see it yet, but this had popped up. And then the thing that I don't like is this max width. It being Claude Code, by default, at least in my experience, in most of my sessions, it makes the max width so small. It doesn't use everything it doesn't use all the space it has effectively. Yeah, and this is ugly too. So like, I guess that's maybe why it did that. But if we refresh, that goes away. So like, I don't like how it's, I like this one. I don't really like it when it's on, no, it's actually better when it's on the right. See how you're alternating? See how the design is alternating for the items we are describing? I don't like that. I prefer the one where the number is in the top right corner. So what that should, so I think this is working on, did it end up making? So we have our archive database, our seed.sql. It generated this stuff, super cool. I can help you understand some of this too, and we can ask if we wanted to as well. So our seed.sql, this is gonna, you don't run this all the time. It's probably already run this against archive.db, but what it did was it dropped our vocab table, dropped our entries table, dropped our days table. Well, how's it dropping a table? It doesn't exist. Yeah, but it's about to. So if it runs this, it's idempotent. It'll wipe it out and then start this back up. So we'll create days with a date, kind of day, manual or QA. I don't know about all that. I don't know. I might have signed off on it, but I don't know if I like that. I like how the date is the primary key, because that's it's text. So, that's one thing to note about SQLite. You don't have like a huge amount of variety with data types, but for what we're doing, it is more than overkill. Entries, because we could be doing all this with just JSON. JSON tables, entries, ID, auto increment. Excellent. Yep. The date, that's going to match to this. Position, integer, yeah. Question, answer. Yeah, I guess. All right. Vocab, ID, entry, term, definition. That's cool. Yeah. So it's going to be extracting terms. I don't know why it's calling it salesman school. This isn't. What are we talking about? QA, insert into days, manual, salesman school, volume 1. I mean, I guess, what is a kernel? Kernel is part of an operating system. What is Docker? What is a daemon? What does it do? So those are probably all correct. So let's see, has it updated at all? Let's see. So what we'll do is we'll get this working, because we're at 45 minutes. We're going to get this working so that we can look at today's and yesterday's and our drop down that we wanted. We'll make it look pretty, so that, like, not super pretty, because like I mean, we could do that tomorrow if we wanted. Like, we could deep dive onto some design tools, but like, I'm so, like, my dopamine just blasts. I get blasted with shots of dopamine anytime that I can speak something into life, which, like, don't hold me to this, but like, sometimes I have ideas and there's just no shot that I'm going to be able to fit it into my schedule. But I like the idea of nothing potatoes oriented. But like, if I had an idea and someone's like, I like that idea, I want to steal it, I think I'm very keen on being like, do it. Like, because if it's going to take up mental real estate for me, it's basically like people become agents. They'll spawn off and do something. Imagine someone built their entire livelihood off of words you said, and you're going to say, oh, they stole it from me. Please don't steal potatoes. Please don't steal any of my potato core stuff. Please don't steal. Like, that's one thing. But when it comes to like, all right, what about like, I can't just think of an idea on the spot. Well, the one that comes to mind that I think is interesting and not really like stealable, because I'm going to still use it, but I had this idea for, it might not exist anymore, but I just got an idea.com. Oh yeah, I do have it. So the idea is like this: you put an idea, you describe it a little bit, and then it ports it off into an engine, and then it sends you an email for whatever your idea was. Oh no, it would build the app using an agentic system like this. It actually wasn't agentic when I made it though. Back then, it was all still just chatbots. Then I had this like huge like system of like idea ingestion, turn it into and then that gets like LLM processed with pipelines and pipelines, and then that sends it off into a project workbench, and then the project workbench has to have a spine. So that's actually there's a database that it's pushing all that stuff to, and the project's just looking at that database, but sometimes being modified by that original idea. And all of these were just like white label. We can explain what white label is. It's like a standard app that you can kind of brand any way that you want and then customize it a little bit to your liking. It's kind of a way for developers to double dip in a way. Like, you already have an app that's maybe compelling or powerful, and then you just brand it some other way, so now someone else gets to use it that way. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's like print on demand, unless like we're getting too much into philosophy of like what all these things are. What we want to do right now is just get this working. Salesman School. So yeah, I don't know what this is. Virtual archive. I think it's trying to find a file. We have this issue. So I know that it's going to fix this, and I know there's a way smarter way to fix that. But I'm just trying to show you that, like, one thing that we definitely want to do is make sure that we are using the playwright skill for this app when iterating. Playwright is a way to like launch Chrome or some browser, and I mean it's browser automation. One thing I really like about it though that I used for there's another tool, I think it's like browser automate or broadamate or something like that. You can record videos automatically, and then like I have that for one of my run books. It scans a bunch of websites, finds the information that it likes, and then we'll screen record like 7 seconds while it scrolls very slowly. So if someone's watching it, they can like look at some information if they're interested. That is a skill that you can give to Claude, so that like in this instance, because like we're seeing this, like the actual back code can't see it. Claude can't see it unless you give it eyes. So that's why it's not working. I think it did something that caused it to crash. Now it's working again. We have our drop down. Excellent, beautiful. Is it all on the right? It's not all on the right yet, so we've got to fix that. Hydrogen and Spotify. Yeah, this is going to be like our not our toolkit, but like what we as individuals have learned. What is a kernel? What is Docker? A way to package up a piece of software with everything it needs to run. The OS operating system, the libraries. Libraries are like not quite modules if you're in IntelliJ land, but IntelliJ is an IDE for Java. Java is a language distinct from JavaScript. The config, all of it. Self-contained box called a container. Picture every, oh, I love it. I love how it's using potato analogies. You could do any analogies. Picture every potato shipment arriving with its own micro truck. The truck contains the bin, the chalkboard sign, the scale, the right kind of weather. Interesting. The truck contains the right kind of weather. You hand it to any market and it sets up identically. That is a container. Yeah, it's like an environment as well as the stuff within the environment. You might think of those as the same things, but an environment in one case might be like some variable like Brett's potatoes API key, like a key to get into potatoes, like our API for like the price of potatoes. I don't know why you'd want that from us. We're an e-commerce brand, but if that's our variable, the environment would include the actual value. The API key, of course, being password. Of course, it's not. But so you have the variable. Potatoes API key, password. This is the variable. So if I try and reference this somewhere, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed in code to reference this. It's not the same in every programming language how you reference it. And HTML is not a programming language, it's a markup language. But in JavaScript or TypeScript, which is what we're using here, I would be able to access this if I import, I think it's like an environment dependency, super simple stuff. It grabs that. Well, would it actually grab this? No, it would be grabbing this. This is like how it knows what to grab. So you could have different environments: sunny day, rainy day, cloudy day, overcast. But this password could change. Maybe there's an API key that's only accessing live data, another one that's only accessing dev data, one that's like very high performance and expensive to use, and another one that's lower performance but cheaper to use. So you have to calculate trade-offs in those instances. So you have potatoes, API key, password. Great. We just explained .env. It would be better though if we just asked our system what it is. Let's make sure. Maybe it's not too bad. Oh, but one thing we've got to change. Maybe we keep it just because it drives me crazy. Whatever the hell this is. I don't know. I don't like that. Set in France's. What the heck is that? I don't know what that is. Oh, Google fonts. Oh, yeah. I mean, I kind of like these fonts. So what is a kernel? What is a distro? Okay, so let's ask some other things that we didn't ask. Okay, what is a well, we could even use this, a kernel. What is, did we do distribution already? Yeah, we got a distribution. Ubuntu SSH server, perfect. What is an SSH server? What, I think it's secure shell. Secure shell, right? What else can we ask? We asked it what the daemon is, something that daemon programs names end in D. HTTPD is the HTTP web server daemon. SSHD is the, okay, interesting. Did not know that. Daemon is just a long-running background process with no person attending to it. Yeah, so like, I think a lot of making a daemon for your software offering might be useful in some ways. An agentic agent D, that might be useful. Like, if you have, like, I'm really interested in this idea, like okay, so what is a discovery server? It server, like Eureka. What does it have to do with Netflix? You'll be surprised. I have this idea for one called, okay, this is one that, like, I don't think I'm going to be able to like own this. I just think that the industry is going to have to catch up to my brain. You know what I'm saying? What is a determined, I'm calling it determined because task discovery server. I made that up, but basically it would be a daemon reviewing commits, Git, and file systems and multimedia stuff. I don't want to say file again. Yeah, multimedia. or just multimedia, in an effort to be useful. That's how I feel sometimes. I'm just like looking for something to do to be useful, but that's also narcissistic because I'm lazy in a lot of ways. I try and do things the easy way, but I like to do it maybe not the easy way. I'm not like war with myself all the time. It's like I have an idea and then I have a million reasons why that's a bad idea. And my coworkers have told me that it sounds like I'm arguing with myself often. So, and like, I'll share that with people. I'll use a lot of words. Sometimes I do feel like I'm using buzzwords, but I like using buzzwords around people who use buzzwords, but I like using the buzzwords the right way. Not that they're using them the wrong way, but like that. I like to, who cares? I'm talking about myself. What is a determined test? I made that up. Okay, so now we have these. I'm actually excited about this project now. I don't know what I'm doing. I think our max width is a little off, and I also hate the squiggly brown line that is our divider decal. Can you use something more like potatoes design? There's a carousel in there that I really like. It kind of kicked off the whole company, not the whole company, but it's just a design carousel. Like, look, it's Russ and butter and baked and sunny and cheese, peeler, hash, salt and pepper. We're stalling. I don't even know if this is a Git project yet, but one thing that you would want to do whenever you're making a project is make sure that you have a .git ignore. This says, hey, don't save this elsewhere. What do I mean elsewhere? When you're using Git, what is Git? What is a Git ignore? I just saw it say MCP. What is a, if you're not sure, find skills. We've got like 3 minutes. Usually you'll do something like this. And oftentimes in a lot of it's called bootstrapping. What is bootstrapping? What is bootstrapping? In coding, when you bootstrap something, what you're really doing is like, you could bootstrap a Spring Boot app. It's funny how they call them Spring Boot. You could bootstrap a Flutter app. You could bootstrap a React app. And it's this like, basically you'll run a command in the CLI, maybe another way, maybe you're on like start.spring.io, and you'll download or create a bunch of files that'll set up a project a particular way with some configuration options that you can then tweak. Things are in the right spot. It's kind of pleasant. The beginning of a project always is. Then it gets really ornery really fast. But one thing that will usually be in there is a .git ignore, because as we talked about before, Git is a source control system or a version control system. And what is a version control system? You have a version of code. This is like version 0.0.2. This is the second patch. We're not going live with this. This is just questions that we've asked that are getting recorded every time we talk to it. 0.0.2. 0.0.2. I actually might deploy this because it's giving like a lot of, I think, value just for all the definitions. So what is Git? What is a Git ignore? What is an MCP? What is bootstrapping? So you'd bootstrap. You'll oftentimes have secrets in here. And if I push this up to a server's just somebody else's computer. If I push this up to a server and I was then going to share it with other people, maybe you, my friend, if you downloaded that and you had those keys, maybe that's okay. Maybe we're on the same team. But what if it was an open source project and I didn't want to share those keys with you? Or we were working on the same team, but we were working with sensitive data and we want a way to trace who deleted user table in prod. So I want you to use your API key for that. I don't want you using my API key because then I'm going to be responsible for it. So what you'll do is you'll say .git ignore. It's going to say .env. If I haven't made a Git project yet, if I haven't made a Git project yet, this will fail. I have made a Git project. So another one, node modules. You never want to add node modules. Well, maybe, I don't know if never is a strong word. I don't know if it's never. But you see how they just disappeared? Now they're not being uh, now they're not being added to version control. So when I push them up, you're not going to see node modules. The reason that's okay is when you do npm install, all of the stuff in here will download a new node modules. But this, so it's going to fetch out to the internet and grab those things. So if they have access to the internet, there's no point in us storing the biggest directory. Like node modules will almost always be bigger than source, it's bigger than scripts, bigger than .git, bigger than Claude. It's going to have all these files in it. And if you're paying for file storage, why would you store those things there? Plus, if you're downloading more and more packages, not only like why would you store those files there, you have no reason to store them. No reason. So that's why we put those there. Now I can do git add like a madman. Some people will do git add one file at a time. So it's like if I do new, do we have a readme yet? We don't have a readme. So now if we do git status, everything will be green except the readme. So I could do git add to get the readme in. Git add all, this is saying git add everything in here. Or I can just do git add readme. And I hit tab to autocomplete. Git commit, my famous first words, initial commit. I don't have to explain myself. Is it still coding? It's not still coding. So now I think we should be able to see distros. There's an SSH server, SSH secure shell, SSH key, pair of cryptograph. And what's so fun about working with Claude is a pair of cryptographic, what does that mean? Used to prove identity. Oh, why would I have to prove who I am? I thought this was 2026. The well-known, that was maybe insensitive. The well-known port number SSH listened to on default. Okay, so it's talking about SSH. What is a discovery server like Eureka and what is Netflix? So this is interesting, and we'll close with this. When you build a small app, there's one server. You hard code its address, done. When you build a big app like Netflix, there's not one server. There are hundreds or thousands of small services, each doing one thing: account, billing, recommendations, transcoding, playback sessions, ratings. This style is called microservices, as opposed to a monolith, where it's just one big project. I think Google's actually one big project, but microservices matter a lot in a lot of modern jobs, so get familiar. For scale, redundancy, and the set of copies constantly. The question, when the playback service needs to talk to the user account service, how does it find the right address to call? Hard coding does not work because they're dynamic. They change too fast, and there's too many. The answer is a service discovery server, sometimes called a service registry. It is a small, special-purpose server whose only job is to keep a current phone book of which service has which IPs running right now. Now, I think Eureka is one. I usually just build my own because it's so straightforward. Maybe that's not so straightforward, but with AI, you could spin them up easily. It's probably not wise, but when you're building your own custom stuff, try it. Try building your own discovery server. You'll learn a lot about ports. You'll learn a lot about what's already running on your machine. I highly recommend it. How it works. Every microservice, when it boots up, calls the discovery server and says, I'm an instance of user account. I'm at this location. No, don't look at that. It's not me, though. I'm healthy. The registry pings each entry periodically. When one stops answering, it is removed. When playback needs user account, it asks the registry, gets the address, gets one, or a list to load balance across. Load balancing, that's another thing that we could learn, and calls it directly. The registry is the phone book, not a middleman for everything. Eureka is Netflix's open source discovery server. They built it because they were hitting exactly this problem at scale. So the thing, this is the thing that I was interested in. This architecture is hundreds of microservices running on AWS, and they needed a phone book. They open sourced Eureka as part of Netflix OSS, a suite of tools. Sweet. Eureka, Hystrix, Zool, Ribbon, and Atlas. I don't know what any of those are. Maybe it's worth me checking them out. They released them. Spring, the popular Java framework, which you can, if you wanted to start.spring.io. That's not real. Sping. I'm glad I didn't just mess up. This is how you can make an easy Java Spring Boot app, which is how most non-Netflix developers came across it. Competitors. Console by HashiCorp, etcd, used by Kubernetes. Oh yeah, this is the backbone of Kubernetes. Zookeeper. In modern stacks running on Kubernetes, the cluster itself does service discovery, and a standalone Eureka is not needed. So the link to Netflix. Discovery servers as a concept existed before them, but Eureka is the implementation Netflix built and open sourced. And Netflix's microservices playbook in the 2010s is why most developers learn the term. Okay, so it didn't even really mention it. In our implementations, when we download Eureka, we're downloading you'll see in the path for the name of the file Netflix, and something about that I thought was so interesting, because it's like it's a piece of history. There's this open source tool that so many companies now rely on, this discovery server for whatever, and yeah, I'm like why? I'm working at a credit union. Why does our code base say Netflix? Like, isn't that trademarked or something like that? I don't know. So what would I determine? This would be is not a made up name, even though it sounds like one. It is one specific shape of a personal contact statement, always on services. Yeah, I like this. So basically, we're building ways to monitor ourselves. Rather than Big Brother, it was you all along. So words and phrases that surfaced. I'm actually hyped about this project now. I thought this might not, I thought I might have to worry about where this project's gonna go. But every time you learn something, you learn how much little you actually know. Thanks for watching. Oh, no. Well, every time you learn something, you see how little you actually know, and that'll make this infinite, because I'm always going to find something new to just be like, hey, what's this about? Hey, what's this about? And then talk about how it relates to certain things. There are so many things we haven't covered yet. So tune back in later for more.